In the savage kingdom, between apex predators and prey, there is only a thin line between life and death. This is Animal Fight Night, when the hunted strike back. The battles for survival unfold at the end of the dry season. In Masai Mara, every lion hunt now carries an additional weight. The rains will not return for another 6 weeks. In those 6 weeks, a lion pride loses about 3/4 of its hunts, a failure rate documented by the Lion Project Mara across decades. The difference between success and failure lies in whether the cubs waiting at home survive the dry season. Tonight, there is a particular female warrior. The Pretender. She is the second youngest member of a pride of 6. She has hunted alongside her sisters hundreds of times. Tonight is the first time she goes out solo, a decision driven by ambition. Her target is an old female zebra whose knee joints have lost their flexibility. But the zebra's hind kick travels with a force of 3,000 newtons. And according to a 2018 study, 62% of zebra hind kicks aim directly at the predator's head region. This is not random defense, this is targeted retaliation. The Pretender has never crossed paths with this particular zebra. She sees only a meal moving slowly, a complete information set by the hunting logic her mother taught her. Every hunting principle a lion has been taught points toward the same outcome. Attack fast, finish within 10 seconds. Her body no longer receiving full instructions from a control center that has just been impacted. The failure is undeniable. From this moment on, she is no longer a hunter. A lion with an injured jaw cannot bite. And a lion that cannot bite cannot share in the pride's meal. In the next 6 dry weeks, the pride will need to share food that is already scarce with a member who contributes nothing. Some will accept this, some will not. This is the moment when the lion's social structure reveals its absolute harshness. This is not a rare event on the Masai Mara plains. For every 6 male lions, one does not live past the age of 8. Because of injuries like these, inflicted by animals it once considered prey, this is the price for survival. Zebras do not only defend themselves against lions, They are also actively aggressive toward animals at the same prey level. When a species recognizes that it carries a defensive tool, capable of neutralizing even a lion, that recognition also shapes how it treats smaller animals sharing the same water source. This is not self-defense. This is territorial assertion. And this is only the first chapter, because in another wild region, a similar prey is waiting with the same defensive mechanism, but a much larger body. In the wild, there are encounters that neither species chooses. Wild horses are populations of horses that have been released back into freedom over many generations and no longer depend on humans. They significantly heavier than the African zebra with sturdier legs and a high defensive capacity against the predators. That defensive capacity is concentrated in a single body part, the hoof. A wild horse weighing 400 kilograms does not just kick harder than a 250-kilogram zebra in linear proportion. It kicks harder by an exponential factor. The lion is in the middle of a hunt. A chain of predatory decisions that are familiar and effective. The lion accustomed to attacking the hindquarters of fleeing prey, but this powerful counter kick has no available answer in a predatory brain that has been programmed for 40,000 years. Far to the north, North America has a similar story worth telling. The moose weighs 500 kilograms. In a water environment, the moose has the advantage of leg height. The bear must swim to follow. After about 30 minutes, the grizzly typically gives up from exhaustion. This is a phenomenon repeatedly confirmed by the rangers in Yellowstone, Glacier, and Grand Tetons. Wild moose cause more incidents involving humans than grizzly bears when measured by annual encounter rates. A moose's kick, according to wildlife biologists, can cause serious trauma even to a bear when the angle is right. On the dry Mopane savanna, some animals do not move with the herd. When a male buffalo passes the age of 12, his strength sometimes becomes a threat. To his own herd, he lives alone, or with a few other old males. South Africans give this species a nickname, Black Death. Cape buffalo are responsible for about 200 hunter fatalities each year across Africa, more than any other large mammal on the continent. Tonight, the dagger boy, no herd, no sentries. 200 meters away, a young male lion has been observing since the early afternoon. He is a 3-year-old male lion, in the most difficult transitional phase of a male lion's life. He has been expelled from his old pride upon reaching competition age, and he is building his own territory. To prove his ability to dominate, he needs a major prize. A solo dagger boy, in theory, is a perfect major prize. He has done the first part of the lesson his mother taught him correctly. Never approach a buffalo from the front, because the horns can pivot in a wide arc, and the head charge generates enough force to cause serious injury. Behind is the blind spot. This is the part where the young lion's lesson is incomplete. The two hind legs of an adult buffalo carry approximately 40% of its body mass. For a 700-kilogram dagger boy, that is approximately 280 kilograms of force that can be released in the opposite direction. For the buffalo, the matter ended at the moment of contact. A male lion with chest injuries cannot compete to build territory. He will need to find another area with a softer competitive structure, or he will not live long enough to try. Zebra, wild horse, and Cape buffalo, all three species use the same defensive mechanism, the hind kick, and all three force the same predator to pay a price. But what happens when the weapon is not two hind legs, but a single front leg as long as a person's height? The giraffe is known through images of grace, gentleness. But a front leg kick from an adult giraffe generates approximately 140 kilograms per square centimeter. This force is enough to cause serious injury even to an adult lion. A solo lion challenging an adult giraffe is a rare decision. A well-organized pride of 4 to 5 members will sometimes try. One starts the chase to push the giraffe toward favorable terrain, while the others wait at choke points along the retreat path. 5 meters, 1,000 kilograms. The giraffe has survived many encounters with lions in her lifetime. The chase begins as 2 lionesses charge from behind, a pace fast enough to maintain distance from the pride and slow enough to keep her balance for a defensive strike if needed. A young lion in the pride, one who trusts in his individual speed and strength, decides she can finish the chase early with a bold leap. The lion charges out of the pride's formation, and she enters the personal defense zone of an adult giraffe in waiting position. This is how nature teaches the lesson that lion parents cannot teach in full. A well-organized pride, an undisciplined member, a life with no second chance. But what happens when there is not just one hunter and 1.5 million wildebeest arrive like a wave? The fight continues into the dry season in the Okavango Delta. This is the warthog. The upper canines of an adult male warthog can reach 25 centimeters in length. In documented extreme cases, longer than 60 centimeters. The lower canines are shorter, but that is the lethal point. Each time a warthog opens its mouth, to eat, to snort, to yawn, the lower canines rub against the upper canines. The animal sharpens its own defensive weapons through the act of breathing. According to wildlife researchers in the Okavango, an adult lioness living in a warthog-dense area takes about 10 to 15 warthogs each year. The problem is, of the 10 to 15 warthogs lion takes each year, the majority are juveniles or small females. A mature male warthog is a different number. The hunting reflex has no mechanism to halt mid-action. After that, she does not move again. The lioness cannot return to her pride before dawn. Her pride will never find her. The Okavango Delta erases traces faster than anyone knows. Finally, the fight takes us to an African river where two prehistoric species face each other. The Mara River. August. The southern crossing point. Returning to the Mara River. This time, the predator has been waiting underwater. Nile crocodiles live in this crossing all year round. In the other 10 months, they sustain themselves with large fish, water birds, and small animals coming to drink. In the 2 migration months, July and August, they need do nothing other than wait. The wildebeest and zebra herds will come. The great feast will cross the river. Some will not make it across. For the predators of Africa, no event provides as many comparable meals as the Great Migration. Nile crocodiles at Mara crossings have been recorded as being involved with thousands of migrating individuals each year. Not because of superior hunting skill, but because of the volume of opportunity that the migration provides. A Nile crocodile in the act of holding prey in its jaws is typically locked in position for several seconds. An evolutionary mechanism allowing the species to secure the prey before performing the death roll. During that lock period, the crocodile's 1,000-kilogram body, half submerged, becomes a shallow obstacle in the current. For a 300-kilogram zebra running from behind under the pressure of the herd behind it, that obstacle is no longer a predator. But this female zebra does not try to wrench her leg free. She does what perhaps her ancestors taught through a survival gene line. The kick lands on the weakest point of the crocodile's mouth structure. In the half-second when the reflex forces the crocodile to reassess his grip structure, the zebra pulls her leg free. The zebra will carry that wound for the rest of the migration season. But she has escaped. This is what the Great Migration teaches us about the concept of the apex predator. The Nile crocodile has a bite force of 350 kilograms per square centimeter, the strongest among living animals today. But they are not an obstacle from which there is no escape. The Nile crocodile can also be a stepping stone when the herd is large enough, when the pressure is high enough, and when an individual prey has enough will to attempt a second kick after being caught. Tonight, 5 battles, 5 underdogs. 5 kings have learned the same lesson. In the wild, the title apex predator is a contract with the prey. Not a guarantee. This is animal fight night when prey strike back. In a world of phantoms and deception, the spotted hyena has been imprisoned by prejudice for centuries. A cowardly scavenger, a thief in the dark? No. When the lens of science illuminates the land of death, their true nature emerges, overturning every old notion of power in the wild. The spotted hyena does not wait for death, they create it themselves. Scientific reality demonstrates this. These are top-tier hunters, directly bringing down up to 95% of their food. As a cursorial predator, an endurance hunter, they operate with an iron heart, constituting up to 1% of body mass, twice the proportion found in a lion. This superior respiratory system allows them to maintain a relentless pursuit across many kilometers of savanna. With a hunting success rate reaching the unthinkable level of 92%, they are the true predators of the plains. And that is bad news for this wildebeest. In panic, it chooses to take refuge in a stream. Water is not the ideal hunting ground for a hyena, but fear has paralyzed the thought process of the lone prey, turning resistance into a string of futile efforts. There is no chance for the wildebeest against the most persistent predators on the planet. The strength of hyenas does not come from spontaneity. It is operated under a rigorous matriarchal social structure. An empire shaped by unique biological transformations, abnormally high androgen concentration, right from the embryonic stage. The aggression of females is forged from the intrauterine environment itself. It molds warriors, with testosterone levels exceeding those of males. A hyena clan is led by an experienced matriarch, holding the survival memory and tactics of the entire collective, with a clear and unchanging social hierarchy. In this kingdom, power is an inherited legacy. The leader's offspring automatically claim the noble rank of their mother, from birth establishing dominant status over other members of the clan as long as they are female. In contrast, the males have very little status in the clan, frequently forced to accept the lowest position in eating rituals and social interactions. The dominance of the matriarchs does not stop at internal management. It is the engine driving the entire system of asserting sovereignty across the savanna. Tails raised upright, a biological signal asserting power and excitement when an unfamiliar olfactory signature is detected in the space. A rival pack has just trespassed on the territory. In savanna confrontations, females are always the vanguard force. A male black-backed jackal has fallen into the daughter matriarch's sights. This is not a hunt. The hyena is performing an act of interspecific exploitation. Jackals are the most skilled at locating fawns. By silently shadowing, the hyena turns the jackal into a biological radar, waiting for the right moment to seize the prize from the opponent's cunning. Meanwhile, the male jackal's mate faces a real nightmare when the hyena matriarch has discovered their den. In the natural world, compassion is a luxury that does not exist in the survival equation. Intra-guild predation, eliminating the offspring of competing rivals, is an ecological strategy to protect future resources for the clan. The mother jackal tries to distract. However, the architecture of nature has become the final shield. The den entrance is too narrow for the predator's massive size. The hyena clan returns to the original plan, abandoning an unfeasible target. To preserve energy for larger hunts, that is kleptoparasitism. Thanks to the advantage in body size, the contest ends quickly. The male jackal must accept the leftover scraps from his own efforts, but at least his pups are safe. The fortunate luck of the jackal pups, or the leftover scraps from the defeated, are not enough to relieve the physiological pressure weighing on the entire clan. They need more to fill their stomachs. And when the first sounds of the wildebeest and zebra herds echo from the horizon, it is the signal heralding the return of the massive protein source on the savanna. However, in a society driven by extreme hunger, patience becomes a luxury. A few young members, lacking the guidance of the matriarch or the experienced eldest daughter, decided to carry out an impromptu hunt. Lacking tactical coordination and the necessary composure, their attack becomes chaotic. The wildebeest easily decode the clumsy attack direction and escape, leaving the inexperienced hunters in futile energy expenditure. A few hours later, the moment of the true masters has arrived. With a superior night vision system, they quickly locate a solitary wildebeest. This is an ideal target, an exhausted being after a long migration journey, with legs grown heavy from the accumulation of lactic acid. In a desperate effort to find safety, the wildebeest mistakenly believes the water will be the barrier blocking the enemy, but in reality, it is trapping itself in a biological snare. The water resistance neutralizes the prey's burst speed, while the matriarch and her daughter establish a landscape of fear right on the bank. Their relentless determination paralyzes the prey's will. The contest ends in the silent but decisive flow of instinct. The cries of the prey echo for many kilometers, serving as a signal to summon the entire clan. Once again, the matriarch confirms her role as the irreplaceable cornerstone of the pack. Her experience is the only line between survival and ruin, a legacy of power that will continue to be passed down to her eldest daughter before the formal succession to this matriarchal kingdom. Dawn at the Masai Mara marks the fragile boundary between life and death, where every breath is stalked. Just one small mistake is enough to end everything on the burning plains of Kenya. Among the golden ocean of grass, a solitary lioness is beginning to write the first chapter of a legend. A solitary traveler crossing endless fields where the wind carries the moisture of the Mother Earth and the buzzing sound of insects. Lacking territory and companions, this lioness relies only on the survival instinct refined through millions of years of evolution. Fate cannot subdue the will of the lone wanderer as she gradually finds kindred spirits adrift on the savanna. Thanks to keen vision and natural attraction, the future leader begins to gather young lionesses under her command. The number of members grows from 3 to 5 and reaches 7 individuals, laying the foundation for a new empire amid the open grassland. With unyielding determination, a superior individual naturally leads a collective that did not gather merely by chance. This army operates as a perfect survival machine, where the power of life and death lies entirely in the hands of the female leader. Under the slanting evening sun, the waves of golden grass conceal the deadly steps of the lion pride advancing. Each movement reaches absolute precision as the main hunters begin to deploy their formation. Communicating through eye contact and body language, these warriors execute a coordinated plan with no gaps. The leader holds the center, flanked on both sides by guardians in the deadliest ambush formation in the wild. Not far away, a herd of zebras still grazes peacefully, completely unaware of the silent shadows narrowing the distance. Pressing in through low bushes, 3 lionesses lock onto the target with cold yellow eyes. The distance shortens to less than 30 meters, while the zebra herd is still entirely paralyzed by the impending danger. When the signal is given, the leader explodes with terrifying speed, directly attacking the unfortunate prey. The thunderous roar tears through the air, pushing the zebra herd into a vortex of extreme panic. One individual collapses, marking the brutal first victory of the young coalition. However, this is just the beginning, as the success rate of lion hunts typically ranges from 25 to 30%. Each failure, accounting for 3/4 of attack attempts, becomes a costly lesson for the leader to master the harsh land. The roar of this species can carry up to 8 kilometers, a proud declaration of sovereignty sent to the entire savanna. Yet the wild world still holds other formidable rivals waiting for this new ruler. Under the fiery sunset, a dark mass of muscle moves majestically. Weighing nearly 900 kilograms with armored skin, this creature possesses curved horns resembling the helmet of an ancient warrior. That is the buffalo, the most formidable giant on the savanna, with a surprising agility hidden behind a stubborn appearance. The dark eyes constantly scan the space, missing no small movement from lurking assassins. High vigilance is the survival key of this species through millions of years of history. They form impregnable blocks of strength by maintaining herd life from a few dozen to hundreds of individuals. Although unity is the core strength, the desire for power still always burns within the herd. Under the burning twilight sky, 2 giant males advance toward each other with a clear intent of dominance. The blazing eyes and confronting horns signal an uncompromising showdown about to begin. The sound of clashing iron horns echoes throughout the plain like sledgehammer blows. Each charge carries the staggering momentum of a 900-kilogram body, making the ground tremble and red dust billow. The 2 duelists stagger back, then continue lunging at each other, turning the contest into a test of the limits of both physical strength and will. Whoever hesitates first will immediately lose their position and must accept a humiliating defeat. While impalas contest position within the lek, a distinct form of physical competition unfolds across a different part of the savanna. This one bypasses antlers. It is fought with the neck itself, used as a pendulum-driven weight. As male giraffes enter adolescence, A social drive begins to pull them toward their own kind. They separate from their mothers and join wandering bachelor groups. These groups distribute predator detection across more individuals, many eyes providing the collective safety that no single animal can offer alone. As the male nears 3 years, the threshold of reproductive maturity, a demanding physical transformation begins. Environmental stress, combined with rising testosterone, begins reshaping his frame into one suited for combat. Unlike the more slender build of females, adult males develop considerably thicker necks and heavier forelimbs that provide a stable striking platform. The neck and skull continue accumulating mass across the male's life. The ossicones and the central frontal ridge gradually build into dense, mineralized projections, converting the head into a weighted striking instrument. Male giraffe society is stratified into 3 tiers, C, B, and A, based on accumulated physical development and competitive history. Rank A individuals hold the dominant position, distinguished by the greatest neck circumference and head mass. Interactions between males are structured around a formalized display behavior known as necking. Junior males approach one another according to a set of implicit behavioral protocols. A specific etiquette governs these exchanges. Each individual maintains a preferred striking side, and both participants consistently respect their opponent's preference. This convention reduces the probability of genuine injury while still allowing the males to assess each other's strength. When breeding access is directly at stake, however, this restraint disappears entirely. Experienced rank A males consistently identify the most mechanically efficient striking angles, maximizing the momentum transferred through the ossicone and frontal bone at impact. Male giraffes do not hold or defend fixed territories. They are wide-ranging individuals moving continuously across the landscape in pursuit of reproductive opportunity. Female giraffes exhibit no conspicuous external signs of estrus, requiring males to conduct chemical assessment through the Flamen response before determining receptivity. At intervals, elevated testosterone produces brief rut periods lasting approximately 2 weeks. During these windows, males display their most assertive and persistent behavior, maximizing every available opportunity before physical reserves are depleted. Following these periods of escalated confrontation, a range of de-escalatory behaviors re-establishes social equilibrium within the group. Male-on-male mounting behavior functions as a post-conflict social mechanism, redistributing tension and confirming the outcome of a competitive exchange. Additionally, a range of affiliative behaviors reinforces individual bonds. Strong individual friendships exist among certain male giraffes. Dominant rank. A males have been observed maintaining consistent mentoring relationships with several lower-ranking individuals, building a layered social network beneath the relentless heat of the open savanna. If the elephant world had a cathedral, it would be Mana pools, a place where the Zambezi does not merely flow through the terrain, but through the essential character of Zimbabwe's wilderness. The most demanding period at Mana pools falls at the close of the dry season. The September to November window is referred to locally as suicide month. Temperatures regularly surpass 45 degrees Celsius. During this interval, Mana pools reveals the most severe version of itself. Within the largest individuals, a profound physiological transformation begins to take hold. Must. After dispersing from the natal family, male elephants enter a fluid social structure known as fission-fusion dynamics. Group composition is not fixed. Size and membership expand and contract continuously, shaped by which water sources remain accessible and which males currently hold authority in the area. But when must arrives, prior rankings become irrelevant. Testosterone concentrations rise to approximately 60 times their baseline levels. In this state, a smaller or lower-ranking male may temporarily override a much larger rival, reducing a previously dominant individual to a subordinate position within his own range. The dark, viscous secretion from the temporal gland serves as an unmistakable chemical warning to other males. When two must males meet in the same space, given the combined mass involved and the chemically driven intensity of the encounter, roughly 90% of these confrontations result in the death of one participant. Unlike most mammals, elephant males continue adding body mass and tusk length throughout their entire lives, a span that can reach 65 years. The scarcity of late dry season forces males of different age classes into divergent reproductive strategies. Veterans, males above 35 years, commit to a high-intensity approach, entering must periods lasting an entire month and investing their full physical reserves in pursuing, protecting, and monopolizing access to female herds. Young adults between 20 and 30 years have not yet developed the size needed to compete directly with older males. They adopt the sneaker strategy, a state of sexually active non-must. For 70% of the year, they remain at the periphery of female groups, exploiting windows when dominant males are occupied with confrontation to mate opportunistically. This approach is modest in profile, but still accounts for 20 to 30% of calves in the population. As the cycle of must contests among the grey giants winds down, the Kruger Savanna of South Africa becomes host to a different form of rivalry, quieter in expression, but no less intense in consequence. By 5 years of age, the drive toward reproductive competition begins to take hold. But the body has not yet developed the mass necessary to challenge the bulls that currently control breeding access. These subadult males are pushed out of the main herd. They aggregate into bachelor groups ranging from 2 to 20 individuals. Time in this structure is spent developing body mass and building the dense horn boss, one of the primary indicators of male quality and competitive rank. In Kruger, bachelor groups tend to establish themselves in dense riverine woodland specifically for its nutritional output. The concentrated, high-protein vegetation allows individuals to reduce daily travel distance by roughly 30%. This conserved energy is redirected entirely into muscle development and physical growth. Within bachelor groups, conflicts among young males are resolved through structured displays of relative size and physical development. These visual assessments serve as a first filter, allowing males to gauge one another without committing to contact that could injure both parties. When reproductive competition is direct and displays are insufficient to resolve the outcome, the force generated at impact is comparable to a vehicle striking a fixed barrier at 50 kilometers per hour. The defeated male withdraws with serious injuries, conceding the competitive opportunity to the individual carrying the heavier, more fully developed horn cap. Leaving behind the collision-driven contests of the large browsers, we return to the shaded corridors of the Sabi Sands in South Africa. In a landscape of dense thicket and dry riverbeds, where even moonlight struggles to reach through the canopy, the male leopard exists as a study in contradiction. When a wandering male secures an unclaimed territory, or a new male displaces the previous holder, he brings with him a presence that reshapes every dynamic in the area. Infanticide is most commonly associated with lions. In practice, leopards rank among the predators with some of the highest documented rates of this behavior. Beyond the primary function of eliminating a rival's offspring and accelerating the female's return to reproductive cycling, infanticide among leopards also provides an immediate nutritional return. This behavior accounts for approximately 40 to 52% of all cub mortality in the species and is responsible for the deaths of close to 1/3 of all leopard cubs born. Yet the male leopard is not solely defined by that capacity for violence. Within the high-density population of Sabi Sands, frequent territorial combat carries too high a risk of injury. To sustain long-term viability, leopards here have developed a distinctive spatial management system, relaxed territoriality. Rather than functioning as exclusive spatial occupants, male leopards in this population tolerate overlap of 25 to 46% between adjacent territories. The mechanism enabling this is a time-sharing arrangement. Through scent marking, each male tracks the current position of his neighbors. Instead of forcing a confrontation, they schedule their use of shared areas at non-overlapping times, avoiding costly encounters while each maintains access to his full range. It is an unspoken arrangement, a deliberate restraint that allows both individuals to hunt effectively without absorbing the physical cost of direct conflict. Yet the most unexpected behavior documented within this population is the capacity for kin recognition and its consequences. As an established male ages and his competitive edge slowly declines, his posture toward other males shifts, aggression giving way to a degree of tolerance more consistent with a paternal relationship. Rather than evicting an emerging competitor, an aging male will sometimes permit a maturing son to remain within his range, following independence. This quiet concession functions as an intergenerational transfer. The knowledge and range familiarity of the older male supporting the early development of the next. creating one of the more peaceful territorial transitions documented in a species more typically defined by sharp displacement. And while the leopards of Sabi Sands manage their coexistence in relative silence beneath the cover of dense vegetation, across the open plains, a far older and more openly contested rivalry continues with the same undiminished intensity. In the contested terrain of the Serengeti, no meal is acquired without a corresponding expenditure. Every calorie gained here comes at the cost of physical output, and the act of breathing uninterrupted is itself a form of success. As resources contract through the dry season, predators are no longer content to pursue only prey. They begin competing directly with one another. This is among the oldest documented rivalries on this continent, and it plays out with particular intensity within the Ngorongoro crater. Within the crater, spotted hyenas are specialists in exploiting the results of others' effort. They will not burn energy chasing prey across open ground if a kleptoparasitic opportunity exists. A single hyena's call, a cackle or low whoop, functions as an immediate rallying signal for the broader group. Once assembled, rank becomes largely irrelevant. The group employs a concentrated mobbing strategy, pressing toward the target from multiple angles at extremely close range, within 1 to 2 meters of the quarry or competitor. With a bite force approaching 1,100 pounds per square inch, exceeding that of a lion, hyenas reduce carcasses to fragments with efficiency, extracting every available calorie. As few as 4 spotted hyenas are sufficient to force a lioness to abandon a kill. Displacing a manned male, however, demands between 10 and 12 individuals working in coordination. This is the moment the male lion demonstrates both rank and physical presence. If the hyena's call is a tool of psychological disruption, the male lion's roar is the direct counterstatement. At close range, a roar reaching 114 decibels transmits directly through the bones and chest cavity of those nearby. A fully mature male lion exceeds 220 kilograms in body mass, more than 2.5 times that of the largest female hyena. He does not require numerical advantage. A single strike from a mature male carries sufficient force to incapacitate most challengers. When confronted directly by an adult male lion, hyenas consistently withdraw rather than engage. Within the Ngorongoro, a hyena clan facing lionesses alone will successfully recover a carcass in nearly every instance. But when a single mature male lion is present, that success rate drops to 0. The male lion's role in these contests extends beyond passive defense. In many cases, males actively initiate confrontation with hyena clans. Recognizing the matriarchal structure that governs hyena group dynamics, they do not scatter their effort across lower-ranking individuals. Instead, they employ a targeted approach described as a decapitation strike. Within the chaos of the encounter, the male lion isolates the matriarch, the individual coordinating vocalizations and determining the group's tempo and direction. Once the senior female is driven off or subdued, the remaining group, sometimes 30 or more individuals, immediately loses cohesion and disperses. If there is a location where the distinction between predator and prey is most consistently contested, it is the grasslands bordering Lake Manyara in Tanzania. In this environment, the target is not a fleeing antelope, but the African buffalo. In these hunts, lionesses serve as the architects of approach and disruption. The male lion operates as the decisive instrument of force. The presence of a mature, dark-maned male has one specific function: to bring down animals that the females alone cannot reliably control. Dietary analysis indicates that buffalo constitute up to 56% of the adult male lion's diet. For lionesses, the figure is approximately 33%. A mature male buffalo can reach 900 kilograms, more than double the body mass of the females attempting the takedown. Buffalo represent more than calories. They are a measure of competitive capability. Without the sustained energy from large prey, a male lion cannot maintain the physical condition required to hold his position. A buffalo hunt is a coordinated sequence with no margin for improvisation. Lionesses handle the approach work, reading the herd, identifying the weakest or most isolated individual, and managing the initial disruption. The male lion enters the final stage without requiring the same level of concealment. His role is to function as an anchoring force, fixing the target in place once it has been isolated. The male lion's defining contribution in large prey hunts is the muzzle clamp technique. Buffalo carry a thick dermal layer across the neck and powerful musculature shielding the trachea, structures that largely neutralize the throat hold approach used by lionesses. The male, equipped with substantially greater jaw strength, chooses a direct frontal engagement instead. The male lion closes from the front, seizing the muzzle and redirecting the animal's ability to breathe. This becomes a test of mutual endurance. The male holds his grip while the buffalo drives its horns and full body weight in an attempt to break free. Only a fully mature male carries the jaw strength and body mass to maintain this lock without releasing. Yet, the highest stakes confrontations always carry corresponding risk for the individual who engages. A single miscalculation in timing or positioning, and the outcome reverses entirely. In this specific type of encounter, the probability of a fatal outcome for the lion is estimated at approximately 50%. If lions represent mastery of coordinated pursuit, the African buffalo embody the counterpart, an enduring mobile resistance that refuses to yield. The river systems of Botswana, where floodplain meets Kalahari margin along deep water channels, create one of the continent's most intensely contested zones. Here, the African buffalo carries the informal designation of ebony shadow, a reference to the deep apprehension it generates among both predators and rival males. Chobe during the dry season imposes conditions of extreme compression. As water points contract to a shrinking number of viable sites, buffalo aggregate into formations of thousands of individuals. Dominant bulls occupy the outer edges of the herd, serving as a living defensive perimeter that most predators avoid engaging with directly. When predator presence is detected, the herd does not scatter. Dominant males produce low, resonant bellows that trigger the formation of a dense, forward-facing cluster, the horn wall. The thickened boss, the dense horn base, functions as a bony helmet, converting the front of each buffalo's skull into a surface that can deflect a lion's strike. One of the most documented characteristics of bull buffalo is active counter-aggression on behalf of compromised herd members. When an individual is isolated and targeted by lions, lead males frequently launch a coordinated countercharge rather than withdrawing. Footage from Chobe has captured bull buffalo holding lions pinned in trees for several hours, patiently maintaining the blockade until an opportunity for a retaliatory charge presents itself. But away from the main herd, the dynamic shifts towards something considerably more vulnerable. Bachelor bulls occupy a life of ongoing compromise. The riverine thickets offer abundant forage, but simultaneously represent one of the most productive hunting environments for resident lion prides. Without the distributed detection of thousands of animals and the protection of the horn wall, a male within a bachelor group faces an encounter rate with predators 5 to 7 times higher than those within the main breeding herd. In functional terms, these bachelor groups operate as a population buffer. Positioned in the most exposed zones, they absorb a disproportionate share of predation pressure on behalf of the central breeding population. The segment of the herd that carries the greatest reproductive value. Maintaining viability in this position demands consistently elevated alertness. When the option to withdraw no longer exists, they shift into an active defensive posture. The African buffalo has demonstrated to the broader predator-prey system of the savanna. The most effective defense is not necessarily the sharpest weapon, but the collective commitment to stand for one another. Yet other bachelor configurations persist across the savanna. Species that compensate for an absence of raw physical power through coordinated cross-species defensive alliances. The Makgadikgadi Basin of Botswana is one of the largest salt pan systems on Earth. Here, heat distortion renders distance unreliable and terrain deceptive, even to experienced observers. In regional tradition, this landscape is understood as a place of proving ground. Young males displaced from breeding herds are pushed to the margins of this territory. The grass is coarser, water sources fewer, and lion activity remains constant. Yet within these conditions of enforced periphery, a sophisticated collective system has taken shape. In the absence of dominant males offering protection, these bachelors must convert themselves into a distributed intelligence network. Rest within bachelor groups is rationed carefully. Research on zebra bachelor populations indicates that individuals dedicate up to 27% of daylight hours exclusively to active surveillance. This is measurably higher than the vigilance rates recorded in family herds under the protection of a resident stallion. They operate under a rotating sentry arrangement. No single individual bears the full burden of vigilance continuously. Within the adjacent riverine thickets, bachelor buffalo groups maintain their own early warning system. Oxpeckers. These birds provide continuous parasite removal while simultaneously serving as a mobile detection network for approaching threats. In these moments, the accumulated experience of older males directs the group's use of the available terrain. They move proactively toward deeper water, an environment that imposes significant disadvantages on pursuing lions. In this medium, the buffalo's physical stability and pushing strength become decisive advantages. They may also channel pursuers into narrow passages where forward speed is eliminated and the pursuing animals become exposed to direct horn strikes. In the Magadic-Gadi, bachelor zebra groups do not operate in species isolation. They employ a mixed species association strategy. They actively integrate with wildebeest herds and giraffe groups to leverage complementary biological capabilities. This arrangement exploits what researchers term the many eyes effect. Giraffe provide an elevated vantage point no ground-level animal can match. Zebra contribute exceptional low-light vision and maintain surveillance at 27% of daylight hours, approximately double the rate observed in family herds. Wildebeest add acute olfactory detection, capable of registering predator scent from distances that exceed the visual range of other species. No visual confirmation of the predator's position is required. This biological early warning network buys the group an estimated 30 additional seconds of lead time before the pursuit begins. When cornered or run across open ground, zebra groups deploy the motion dazzle effect. A predator attempting to isolate a single target finds itself navigating a disorienting, continuously shifting mosaic of stripes. And when withdrawal is no longer viable, these bachelors switch from evasion to forward aggression. They engage with the commitment of animals that have exhausted every alternative. Across the entire breadth of the savanna, time is the one force that cannot be outrun. Those who held dominance through physical superiority must ultimately face an inevitable trajectory: decline. Yet, at the threshold of that decline, the most effective resource available to them is no longer found in strength or speed, but in accumulated experience and the knowledge transferred to those who follow. A society carried forward not by force, but through a chain of mentorship extending across generations. In their earliest years, nearly a full decade, young bull elephants inhabit a carefully sheltered existence beneath the authority of a matriarchal family. Their mothers and grandmothers offer both physical cover and constant vigilance. In time, the first ivory begins to push forward from the jaw. With adolescence comes a gradual displacement. Young males are edged toward the outer margins of the herd, circling the family unit as peripheral observers rather than protected members. Each experience serves as quiet instruction for the world ahead, one where physical strength and accumulated knowledge determine a male's standing. Around age 14, elevated testosterone reshapes their temperament. Dutiful offspring become volatile and confrontational. At this point, eviction is both deliberate and necessary. To prevent inbreeding, the matriarch drives her sons away. The young bulls begin withdrawing from familiar bonds. Some briefly attach themselves to temporary bachelor groups. Occasionally, they drift back toward the matriarchal herd. The separation is total. The bull crosses into the world of solitary males. His path forward is one of self-determination, establishing his rank among the largest individuals on land. Below the slopes of Kilimanjaro, the elephant world is not structured around physical force or predatory leverage. Here, persistence is encoded within brains averaging 5 kilograms, held by individuals who have navigated decades of changing conditions, and it is transmitted through what may be the oldest educational tradition operating on the Savanna, the mentorship system. Unlike the dominance hierarchies that define the large cats, male elephant leadership tends toward consensus. Researchers have documented the use of low-frequency infrasound vocalizations by senior males to guide group movement. This is leadership by precedent rather than compulsion. Movement follows the judgment of an individual whose survival record has demonstrated competence across many dry seasons. Established males function as a social stabilizer with measurable effects on younger individuals. When adolescent males are expelled from the matriarchal herd at approximately 14 years of age, cortisol concentrations rise sharply, producing volatile and unpredictable behavioral patterns. South African conservation records document cases in which young male elephants reached maturity in the absence of experienced bulls. Without exposure to established male behavioral norms, over 40 white rhinoceros were killed without provocation during the young male's adolescent years. Stability was only restored after older bulls were introduced into the population. The presence of senior bulls measurably suppresses the early onset of musth in younger males, reducing the intensity of adolescent behavioral instability, and provides practical instruction in threat assessment and environmental reading. Within Zulu tradition, the male elephant is called Indlovu, a term that captures both formidable force and patient wisdom. As young males develop under the influence of senior individuals, their personalities begin diverging from one another. They cease to be interchangeable versions of the same behavioral template and develop as distinct individuals, composed or socially engaged or deliberately authoritative in manner. The males who achieve the greatest long-term social influence are termed keystone males. They balance the assertion of authority to preserve group structure with the social engagement needed to maintain cooperative bonds. Notably, the presence of younger individuals also measurably benefits the senior males, reducing agitation and increasing pro-social behavior, sustaining a functional intergenerational loop. For a bull buffalo past age 12, the era of herd leadership is a distant memory preserved in the dust of old tracks. Displaced by younger, heavier individuals, these old bulls are pushed permanently to the periphery, living alone or in small groups separated from the breeding herd. They are called the Daga boys. In Zulu and Shona, Daga means mud, a name that references both their appearance and the specific survival tactic that defines their final years. The stagnant wallows and shallow marshes of the Kruger region become both sanctuary and defensive position for these individuals. The thick casing of dried mud across their thinning hide provides insulation against direct solar radiation in temperatures that frequently exceed safe exposure levels and reduces the persistent irritation from the tick and parasite loads that accumulate without herd-level social grooming. Within that aging frame, however, remains a behavioral disposition shaped by decades of intense competitive experience. In the absence of herd protection, Daga boys rely consistently on preemptive offense, an active deterrent strategy, ensuring that the possibility of an attack is addressed before it can develop into a committed pursuit. The fully calcified boss on the forehead has hardened into a surface that resists direct impact, effectively shielding the skull from frontal engagement. Lion prides quickly learn that targeting the head of a Daga boy yields little result, and redirect their attempts toward the hindquarters and flanks instead. This is why these individuals accumulate extensive scarring across their rear and sides. The physical record of encounters in which they refuse to be brought down. An irritable, unpredictable, and aggressively defensive temperament makes Daga boys among the most hazardous individuals on the African landscape. Solitary in their last years, yet entirely undiminished, standing in their mud pools as a permanent reminder that age does not eliminate resolve. For the lion, the final chapter carries a different weight. For a manned male, the shifting color of the evening sky signals a contraction of influence. The physical machinery that once enabled him to hold territory and defend a pride has now begun to work against him under the accumulated pressure of years. On the Savanna, no position of authority is held in perpetuity. Every male eventually settles his account with the ecosystem that sustained him. Lionesses generally outlive males by a significant margin. For a wild male, total lifespan averages between 8 and 10 years. Fewer than a handful will still hold productive territory past age 12. As speed and reaction time begin their decline, as the accumulated damage from past buffalo encounters becomes chronic, the boundaries of the territory begin to contract. The landscape now offers no concessions to his diminished state. Coalitions of young males, heavier, faster, and still building toward their physical peak, press outward from the dense cover. They do not arrive to negotiate terms. They arrive to replace. The transfer of power is direct and physically decisive. The male who loses the contest, if he survives, exits with nothing. No territory, no pride, no standing. He is returned to the margins of the landscape, restarting the nomadic existence of his earliest years, but now carrying a body already bearing the cost of a decade of competition. In this state, he must begin scavenging, competing for access to carcasses against the hyena clans he once drove off with ease. And the closing irony of his trajectory often arrives at the horns of the very prey he once controlled. A dagger boy, alert, armored and without hesitation, can deliver a lethal strike to a male lion whose body can no longer carry the speed required to disengage. This is the savanna's fundamental accounting. The individual who once occupied the apex of the food chain is returned to the substrate beneath the animals he once dominated. The story of savanna males is one of sustained effort and accumulated dust, but the natural world is not written in a single register. In other regions of the planet, largely removed from this particular arena, the bonds between males take on entirely different forms and expressions. Moving away from the heat-saturated open plains and the resonant calls of the continent's largest land animals, at the westernmost edge of Australia, the Red Desert meets the Indian Ocean. Shark Bay holds UNESCO World Heritage designation. The Malgana people, traditional custodians of this coastline, call it Gutharaguda, meaning two waters. Shark Bay carries historical significance tied to the voyages of Dutch navigators in the 17th century who left inscribed pewter records on the island of Dirk Hartog. But the bay's ecological significance rests in its living systems. The most expansive seagrass meadows on Earth, covering over 4,000 square kilometers, and the presence of stromatolites, mineralized microbial structures that represent some of the oldest biological material documented on the planet. Within these waters, Indo-Pacific bottlenose dolphins have developed the most complex multi-tiered male alliance system documented in any non-human species. First-order alliances consist of 2 to 3 males who cooperate exclusively to court and guard individual females. Second-order alliances are broader networks assembled from multiple first-order groups, formed to assist in recruiting females away from rival groups or to provide collective defense during contested interactions. While lion coalitions are anchored in shared genetics, bloodlines forming the basis of cooperation, male bottlenose dolphins construct their alliances through accumulated social interaction and individually recognized signature whistles that function as identifiers. This produces a more flexible and reconfigurable social architecture than the rigid kinship-based hierarchies characteristic of the large cats. Set below the Rwenzori Mountains, known locally as the Mountains of the Moon, and positioned within the western branch of the Albertine Rift, Kibale encompasses 795 square kilometers of montane and lowland forest. It supports the highest recorded primate species density on Earth. Historically, Kibale has been part of the ancestral landscape of the Baturo people, who have maintained a long-standing relationship with the primate communities sharing the forest. It is also home to one of the longest continuous behavioral studies on chimpanzee society, centered on the large Ngogo community. Within Ugandan cultural understanding, chimpanzees are conceived of as beings that carry a fundamentally human social intelligence within a wild physical form. Their capacity for planning and strategic manipulation frequently demonstrates a depth comparable to our own. Physical strength accounts for approximately half of what determines alpha status in male chimpanzees. The remaining half is political capacity. Where baboons employ the high-risk vulnerability exchange of diddling to test and build trust, chimpanzees operate through what researchers describe as a social market. If baboon dominance resembles authoritarian rule, chimpanzee influence building resembles strategic lobbying, achieved through a sophisticated reading of individual social psychology. A physically smaller male chimpanzee can successfully displace a much larger rival if he develops the skill to accumulate allies. Through strategic food sharing or extended grooming sessions. This is a society governed by implicit agreements and carefully prepared realignments of allegiance, negotiated quietly and incrementally across time. In the forests of Central America, a performance-based reproductive strategy unfolds across the branches. Male lance-tailed mannequins coordinate a precisely synchronized display to attract females. Yet only the alpha male retains reproductive access to the female who responds. Where each male at an impala lek competes independently for his own reproductive access, the mannequin system is built entirely on cooperation between partners. The supporting beta male invests years as a secondary performer in another male's display, receiving no reproductive benefit during this period. This investment constitutes a formal apprenticeship. He learns the full sequence of display behaviors and maintains proximity to the performance site, positioned to inherit the alpha role when the current holder dies. As the sun drops below the Serengeti horizon and the day's light withdraws, the arc of the journey through the savanna's male hierarchies draws toward a close. But on a landscape defined by cycles, no ending represents a final state. A process is underway that the visible drama of predator and prey rarely highlights: succession. A male lion's legacy is not calculated by the number of contests he won, but by the number of viable offspring he leaves behind. Over a decade of competitive tenure, a successful male may father between 20 and 30 surviving young. This is the measurement of biological continuity. His behavioral tendencies, physical traits, and the specific characteristics of his era are carried forward in those individuals. The exit of aging males is not a diminishment of the system. It is a necessary clearing. It introduces new competitive material and prevents the genetic stagnation that would ultimately reduce the population's adaptive range. The social world of savanna males is a system built on paradoxes, expressed not only through confrontation and scarring, but through quiet cooperation and bonds that persist across years. Within this sustained competition, the ecosystem consistently produces a clear demonstration. The most enduring individuals are not necessarily the most isolated. Genuine persistence lies in knowing precisely when to operate alone, pressing forward as a solitary moving unit, and when to remain within a coalition, functioning as part of an interlocking structure that distributes risk and multiplies capacity. This is the governing principle, the unspoken architecture that enables males across species to navigate the relentless passage of time. In the 21st century, however, the underlying system that has sustained this dynamic faces pressures with no historical precedent. According to 2024 data from the IUCN and WWF, African lion populations have contracted by 43% over just 21 years. Roughly 23,000 individuals currently persist across the continent. They now occupy less than 6% of their documented historical range. The Great Elephant Census confirms that roughly 8% of the African elephant population is being lost annually. Primarily to illegal harvesting and escalating land use conflict. With fewer than 7,000 individuals remaining in the wild, the cheetah is approaching functional extinction faster than the species can reproduce. The removal of males, particularly bachelor groups and senior mentors, represents the dismantling of a functional ecological structure. Researchers identify this as top-down regulation. When lions or leopards are removed from a system, prey populations expand unchecked, leading to overgrazing and the degradation of critical river basin ecosystems such as the Okavango and Chobe. Research conducted by the University of Exeter between 2020 and 2024 provides additional evidence. Protecting mature bull elephants is equivalent to protecting a living social knowledge library. The absence of lead bulls results in social destabilization and an escalation of atypical aggression among younger males, creating increased risk for human communities and other megafauna, including rhinoceros. Yet alongside these pressures, targeted conservation programs are demonstrating measurable progress. In Namiri and across the Serengeti, AI-powered camera systems now identify individual cheetahs from spot patterning with 98% accuracy, enabling researchers to monitor stress indicators and behavioral health of bachelor groups without physical disturbance. In Amboseli, beehive fence installations combined with satellite-based early warning systems linked to the movements of lead bulls have reduced human-elephant conflict fatalities by 7%. The verdant savanna requires no pity. It demands only our understanding. Every battle-scarred dagger boy, every deposed sovereign wandering through the night, and every elder mentor teaching the youth the secrets of the water. They are all irreplaceable fragments of the magnificent tapestry we call life. Our true legacy is not found in the photographs captured from the seat of a safari jeep. It is the commitment that 50 years from now, the roar of kings will still vibrate the Serengeti soil, and the walls of horns will still stand firm against the dust storms of Etosha. Among these diverse brotherhoods, from the calculating dolphin pods to the unyielding buffalo veterans, which bond do you believe is the most enduring and formidable? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this journey insightful, don't forget to like and share this video. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss our next exploration into the heart of the wild. We have just journeyed through the most unfiltered glimpses of the intense pushback from those typically seen as prey, who find themselves standing their ground against those at the top of the food chain. Which creature has forced you to see the wild in a whole new light? Was it the earth-shaking force of a giraffe's hooves or the tusks of a warthog honed to a razor's edge with every breath? Please share your thoughts in the comments. Your understanding is the greatest tribute to these remarkable wild residents. Do not forget to hit like and subscribe to stay in the loop for our upcoming journeys, where we will continue to crack the most mysterious codes of survival. And if you are eager to explore more about these high-stakes struggles for life, please continue your discovery at Win or Die full episode. Deadliest battles for survival or lion attack, the Mapogo battle for survival.